Eight, and our next talk is Transforming Security Operations with AI and ML. It's being presented by Shailesh Rao, who leads the Cortex division at Palo Alto Networks. With over 25 years in technology and business, he has held senior roles at major companies, focusing on security operations and cloud solutions. So please give a round of applause for Shailesh Rao.
Thank you, everyone. Great to be here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Houston. Oh, sorry. Wrong crowd. Hey, everyone. How y'all doing? You can move up front, you know. Great to be here. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. My name is Shailesh Rao, and I'm president of our Cortex division at Palo Alto Networks. I've been with the company about 6 years, which is about as long as Cortex has been around as a brand and as a platform within Palo Alto Networks. So I've seen the business grow from almost nothing to well over north of $1 billion, well north of $1 billion now after 6 years. So I spend most of my time going all around the world. I travel more than I'd like to, maybe, but just got back from London day before yesterday. And all I do is talk to customers such as yourselves, companies like yourselves, who are at this cusp, that I see that they're at this cusp of, what I would say is they're mostly at this place where they're frustrated, partly frustrated and partly confused. And that's not the state of their cybersecurity affairs. The frustration is no matter how much technology we throw at the problem, no matter how hard we seem to try, it's all of us, we're all on the same side of this battle. No matter how hard we try, it seems like it sometimes feels futile, because every time there's a bigger attack, every time you hear about an attack in the news, it's more lethal, it costs more, the attackers get away with more in less amount of time. So the frustration comes because it always feels like we're just barely staying alive. That's the frustration. The confusion, which is a genuine question in people's minds, is why is it that the frustration is like no matter what we do, it doesn't seem to work. There's always something happening. And I ask CISOs this all the time. Are you sure when you go back home tonight, are you sure that your company is protected against, pick any attack, pick a threat vector, are you sure that, Log4j is not going to hurt you? Are you sure that, C3X will not hurt you? Can you be sure? Just like I could be reasonably, to the level of certainty, let's say that when I go home, I know that if I wanted to go home and log into Salesforce, I wanted to get my email from Gmail or Outlook or whatever else, I know I'll get my email and I don't expect anything bad to happen. That same comfort do you have against the latest threat out there? No one can say with confidence that they do. So that's the frustration. It's like, why can't I say that? And the confusion is, what is it that I need to do? It's not that people aren't spending, cybersecurity spending is up. There's more tools available to solve all of these problems than we've ever had before. And unlike we don't have these problems with any other area of the business except any other area of technology except cybersecurity. Well, people will say, well, that's kind of obvious. There's attackers on the other side. They want to get to us. Yes, that's the difference between this and any other piece of technology. So the confusion, genuine confusion people have, or question is, what am I doing wrong? I've got all these tools. What am I doing wrong? We have a point of view. And as innovators, and I'm sure you all innovate in your own ways, in your own businesses, as innovators, obviously you have to come up with new ideas, you have to come up with new ways of solving problems, but fundamentally at the end of the day, you have to have a point of view, I believe. Innovators have a point of view. You may be wrong, but you have to have a point of view, and you have to believe that this is why something's happening and therefore I'm going to go change it. So our belief, our point of view is A few things. Number one, the reason this is happening is, and some of these are not brilliant insights, but some of these help build up to the eventual insight which we developed. The first one is that the pace, the scale, the sophistication, the size, the speed, the severity of attacks that are coming are increasing at a pace that we've never seen in the history of technology. Never. Why is that the case? If you study history, I'm a big history buff. I'm also a fan is probably not the right word. I'm also a student of history of war. Because I'm a very peaceful person, ironically. Why would I be studying the history of war? Well, if you study why someone did something bad, hopefully you'll learn something from it and won't do it. But if you think of the history of war and history of warfare, for the first time, I think, I could be wrong, and there might be people, there might be some of your actual historians who might come and challenge me, please do. There has never been the kind of asymmetry and symmetry at the same time among the combatants in a war. What do I mean by that? The asymmetry is the following. Well, the symmetry is the following. That's the easy part. So historically, war happened because I had access to weapons you didn't have. For the most part, there were other reasons for it, but the way I was able to beat you, you were able to beat me through the history of civilization is because I had weapons you didn't have. I had guns, you didn't have guns. I had tanks, you didn't have tanks. I had planes, you didn't have planes. I had nuclear weapons, you didn't have nuclear weapons, or vice versa. So there was an asymmetry in the ability to wage war. Suddenly, for the first time, well, it's not so sudden, but we now have a symmetry between the two sides of this battle, unlike anything we've ever seen. The threat actors, doesn't matter if I'm not talking about the hobbyists. For the most part, let's ignore them. They're just a minor side of the part of the pie chart, if you will. Most of them are professionals, many of them working for nation states. Many of them are out to either ransom people or get trade secrets or intellectual property. So we're talking about the serious threat actors, not the hobbyists. The symmetry is that they have access to the same technologies that we do. They have access to cloud computing, they have access to AI, they have access to machine learning libraries, they have access to cheap elastic compute like we do. They have access to all those stuff. In fact, if you wanted to go buy Lockbit 4.0 or 3.0 or 4.0, whatever the latest version, I think it's 4.0, you go to the dark web, you can also buy it with customer support. They will actually offer you customer support if you pay for it, and there will be a person behind a voice modulator that will tell you how to set up the world's leading ransomware package. So the symmetry is startling. Right? Never before that both sides had the same battle, same weapons. Well, I'm going to tell you we have a slightly better weapon, and that's the best we can do, but the point is there's the symmetry. The asymmetry comes from the following. Never before, think about this, never before have the odds been so stacked differently than they are in this war. What do I mean by that? The bad guys, the hackers, they don't have a budget limit. You do. The MGM Grand hack, I'm sure we've all heard about it, right? We read about it. We used things from it in our jobs. Hopefully you didn't get impacted by it. From what we can tell, they made off with about $50 million for about a week's worth of work. Last time I checked, that is still the most lucrative business model on the planet. Because pretty much your chance of getting caught are rare, shall we say. So one, they don't have a budget limit. They need money, they just go ransom somebody, get money, and then next thing you know, you're waging a battle against a well-funded foe. Asymmetry number two, they don't have performance reviews. We do, right? You have to answer to your board, your CISO, your compliance group, your regulators. They don't care. No one's watching their performance. They're just throwing darts, waiting in the morning, coming back next morning to see what, putting a net and see what they caught. That's number two. Number three, they have to be right once. We have to be right all the time. Every day, every device, every application, every API call, every read, write, every search, we have to be correct. They have to get through once. Never before, think about it, has there been that kind of asymmetry in the conditions of war, while at the same time, symmetry in weapons used in war. Sorry to use a war metaphor. Like I said, I'm a very peace-loving person. But unfortunately, this is a business where there's bad guys, good guys, and they are mostly guys to the women in the room. I'm being politically correct. Most of them, everyone I know. I don't know anyone, everyone I read about. So, as we keep adding more and more and more categories of tools, guess what happens? Do you think that the threat actors are oblivious to this idea that we keep adding more stuff? No. They know exactly what's going on. They're as smart as us, in some cases smarter. We hope most cases we're smarter. But every time we add more tools, every time we add yet another tool in the cybersecurity mix, we create an inordinate amount of opportunity for somebody to get through. Remember, they have to get through once. What do I mean by that? Let's go back to, I don't know, high school, when we first studied permutations in math. If you have to, take 4 people, you seat them this way, 2 at a time, how many ways can you, how many combinations do you have? If I have 2 nodes in a network, or 2 applications in a network, independent of how many times each node is used, or how many applications are on the network, doesn't matter. There's at least 4 places or 4 ways in which it can get compromised. At each node, and on the path from one to the other. So A and B, 2 nodes. At A, I can get compromised. At B, I can get compromised while going from A to B, while going from B to A, right? The minimum. And that's not accounting for how many times I go, how many things I put, just minimum n nodes, n squared ways to get compromised, times some factor, whatever, 10, 15, 20, 100, 1,000, doesn't matter. If you have 30 cybersecurity tools in your enterprise, every time an application is opened, closed, read, write, written upon, stored, called, 900 ways for somebody to get through. That is, I'm sorry, insane. Nowhere else in your enterprise do you allow that kind of risk to happen. Nowhere else. Do you have 40 HR tools? I know sometimes the HR tool I use makes me feel like I have 40 in the enterprise. I'm sure we can all relate to it, but we have 1. How many ERP solutions do you have? 1, maybe 2. How many CRM tools do you have? 2, 1. How many email tools do you have? But for cyber, we need 45 point solutions that we are somehow going to magically integrate because we're just so good at it. Really? If we were so good at doing this, we would all be in the cybersecurity business, right? Not in the, whatever you're in, finance, commerce, hardware, I don't know, travel, healthcare, whatever it is that you're all doing. Just, it's insane. Yet, we do it every single time. And what happens is the following. Unit 42 is Palo Alto Networks' research arm. It's made up of some of the best researchers in the world and a bunch of, hundreds of incident responders, breach responders, proactive risk assessment folks, etc. So this is the people platform that powers Palo Alto Networks. The rest of it are product platforms. At Unit 42, every year we do about 12 to 1,400 cases. That's when people call us, they say, we've got breached, come and help us. Most of them are that way. That's the ones I'm counting at least. We do a lot more where we go proactively, we do tabletop, we do, blue teaming, red teaming, all that stuff. But most of them, unfortunately, call us after the breach. And of those 1,200 or so, we keep track of, obviously, the data. I don't know who they are. It's not my job to know, so I don't know for obvious reasons. But what we have noticed is the following. In just the data we have we have access to. Because when you do industry numbers on this, it gets skewed completely. You get 1,000 people, companies responding to a survey, 6 of them have had material breaches, the rest of them not material, a lot of them are like 4 people, and then they skew the thing and say, on an average of 1,000 people, the X was whatever, 42. Doesn't make sense, because while statistically significant, the precision is not very high. This is not the case. These are 1,200 people, companies, many in the Fortune 2,000, call us, say we have a breach. So we have a problem, we go help fix them. In those companies, in 2021, same sample set, maybe not the same companies, we hope not the same companies, but similar sample size. 2021, the average dwell time was 44 days. That's the time from when the hacker went in to when they went out, 44 days. Sometimes they found out while they were in there. Most of the time it's after the fact, 44 days. In the 1,200 companies we've seen, but that's really, really precise information. Very useful, statistically significant and precise. Material, 44 days. In 2023, 12 days. 2024, in some cases, can't say averages, here's not done yet, 12 hours. In and out in 12 hours. No idea what happened. Much after the fact, found out something was wrong, called us, we go in, do the thing, do what we do, and then find out, they were in there for 12 hours and they got whatever they wanted to get. So when you have something like that, with all the technologies that are out there today, except Palo Alto's, that's a claim, you don't have to believe it. Our job is to convince you that we are right, your job is to poke holes in it. That's how this works. But if I didn't believe it, then I wouldn't be standing here telling you this. With the state of the art that we have seen across all of these companies, it takes them on average 7 days to even find out that something's gone wrong. And then it takes them 3 days to have some level of containment, and then it takes them another 5 days to remediate. Now you can dismiss this thing, that's, you know what, big numbers, you're doing this whole thing with the industry, my company is different. No, don't do that. Don't fall into that trap. That's why I qualified the data very carefully. This is for 1,200 customers that we go and rescue after the breach. This is not some industry analyst sending out reports saying, click here. And no, this is actual data where we have a lot of information because we were called post-breach. This is very relevant information and highly gathered very scientifically. Now, if it takes on average, but on a very relevant sample, 16 to 17 days before you can do something and potentially remediate, and the dwell time is 5 days, two things we can do. Hope that our prayers are very good and that whoever they're intended for is listening. That's the state of the art. Sorry to sound like I'm peddling fear. I'm not doing anything different. That's what this industry is. Unfortunately, we are in a game of fear because we are in a battle and the bad guys are really bad. And they don't have performance reviews, they have an unlimited budget, and they have to be right once. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the nature of this game. So this is, like I said, again, in 2021, 44 days, getting even smaller, and the average cost to remediate is $4.8 million. We were involved in some of the largest breaches, very public breaches in the US this year, and otherwise, but I'm assuming most of the audience here is more familiar with the ones in the US. One of the largest breaches, they called us 2 weeks after. They tried everything, and they called us 2 weeks later. And as I heard somebody who was very closely involved describe it, he said, 2 weeks later, I asked, how bad was it? He's like, Shailesh, they had no idea what hit them. I said, what do you mean? I thought, what hit them as in which particular ransomware or which particular threat actor? They're like, no, Shailesh, they didn't know if what hit them was a flood or a bomb. after 2 weeks. Large company, global, billions of dollars, yada, yada, tools up the, one of everything. They got one of everything. They got a few of everything. Of every category for which Gartner has a 2x2 or Forrester has a wave, they've got one of those. Why is it then that 2 weeks later? Because here's what happens. Every point solution in their enterprise, cybersecurity, wait, I did my job. Well, I do identity. See, I collected all the data, I did my thing, I put it in the SIM. Oh, I do endpoint, I do only detection. Okay, here I collected all my data, I put it in the SIM. Somebody else, I did my thing. Oh, I just do vulnerability assessment, all the data I collect. I look up something, I do my this, I do my that, then I put it in the SIM. Great. Individually, there's nobody you can blame. Everyone's done their part. Yet collectively, something really bad happened. Whose job is it to fix it? In some cases, $100 million later, they might have a solution. We think that model is broken. Does it mean we can't go on for some time? Yeah, you can. None of us is perfect. We all know that, we should not eat bad food, and we should exercise and all of that. Yet, do we all do it? No. Do we all continue on? Yes. Does it mean tomorrow we are not going to wake up? No. So all of these have a buffer. But the fact is, it doesn't change the fact that bad diet and no exercise is bad for you. Similarly, bunch of point solutions trying to be integrated through a company that isn't in the business of integrating point solutions is a recipe for a disaster waiting to happen. Bold statement, yeah. But you know what? We have to have a point of view. We could be wrong, you could disagree with me, that's okay. Rational people can disagree and still go have a drink afterwards. In fact, most of the people I have drinks with are the ones who disagree with me because I say something like, that's BS, let's talk about it. Okay. So this is the point. What we are saying is the following. The only way forward, or at least the best way forward that we know of, and I think you would agree, and this is not about how Palo Alto does it, just logically, is if I can collect all the data, every piece of data from everywhere, doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter how disparate, doesn't matter how clear or unclear the data is, doesn't matter how structured or unstructured it is, doesn't matter if it's normalized, non-normalized, doesn't matter. If I can collect all the data that goes through my enterprise, every bit of data, not some data, not just, well, this is good enough. Not, well, 30% of alerts, if I can triage them, I'm good enough. No, that's like if you have 10 people, 10 thieves, burglars outside your house, and the cops take 3 of them away and say, yeah, now you can go to sleep. Are you going to take those orders? You wouldn't. But yet in a SOC, we do it all day long. Alert triage percentages are 40%, 30%, and yet we're like, yeah, we're fine. No, you're not fine. We're not fine. We're just waiting and hoping and praying. So imagine if you could collect all of this data, analyze it, stitch it together. Before you do anything with it, just take all of those pieces of data and make sense of them. Forget about machine learning. Just make sense of it by putting it all together first. Do it quickly. I'm talking machine time. Instantly, you get some tremendous advantages. Then you apply machine learning. Then you apply AI and all those techniques. And then when you do that, compare that against everything we know, finally put the human at the end of that cycle. Today, what we do in security operations is we still rely too much on the human being. We rely too much on a human being to go into a repository, let's call it a SIM. It doesn't matter which SIM. And proactively, we hope, but in reality, mostly reactively, go back and try to find out what happened. It's too late. And what every SIM vendor does, rightfully so, is give you more and more tools to make it easier for you to do just that. Go look for things. Be proactive. Go look for things. Our take is, why do I want... Yeah, we can keep giving you better tools, but why don't we just actually do the job? Instead of giving you better tools to do the job, why don't we actually run security operations for you? Can we do it? And the answer is, yes, we can. Sorry. Yes, we can. That slogan, different time, different place, but I'm using it in a different context. But here's the thing. We have technologies today. We have the ability, if done right, to collect so much data, to analyze it in a way that puts all of this together and gives us the best possible chance of success. And that is the approach that we are advocating as Palo Alto Networks. We say without that, we're just waiting for something bad to not happen to us, so hoping that something bad does not happen to us. Because what we have is more vendors, more tools to help you do your job. If your job is to dig a 10-foot deep hole that's 8 feet in diameter, most solutions are giving you a better shovel. But look, this shovel has cruise control. But look, our shovel has a gold-tipped blade. Our shovel comes with, I don't know, whatever, an AI bolt-on that knows what kind of minerals are in the soil that you're going to dig. But you have to dig the hole. We're still relying on people. So now what do? I don't have enough people. I don't have enough people. I don't think the problem is not enough people. The problem is the ones we have aren't being used the way we should in cybersecurity. You want me to prove it empirically? Why is the burn rate so high? Why is the retention rate so low within a SOC? What is a happy SOC analyst called? Does anyone know? A fictional character. They don't exist. Because what are they doing? All day long, triaging, looking for alerts in a SIM. That's not what we're good at doing as human beings. We're horrible detectors. We hire these people saying, we want to make you good defenders. We hire them saying, you know how to reverse engineer malware? Show me how you can do this, command and control. We go put them through all these hoops when we hire them, the 2 or 3 people we get to hire every 4 years, and then we make them look for alerts in a SIM. That's crazy. I don't think that makes no sense. Instead, let the machine do all the work that it can, everything that it can, and then make the human the arbiter of trust at the end between 2 elements of trust that the machine comes up with. That's what we're designed to do better than humans. Not look for a needle in a haystack. We'll never beat the machine at beating a needle in a haystack. Yet, what's the state of the art? Everything goes into a SIM. Guess what happens in a SIM? Here's the problem, okay? It's very basic. Every SIM, most SOC, forget the SIM, most security operations run on a basis of correlation rules. Would you generally agree with me? Correlation rules, look for this, look for that. If I had to describe this to my mom, and if I said, Mom, it's really writing a bunch of rules to look for a needle in a haystack, the needle is getting harder to find and the haystack's getting bigger. Fair description? Short elevator ride with my mom. Okay. You can only write rules for what you know. That's not an opinion. That's like database 101. You can't write rules for something you don't know. So you're basing your entire security operations on a system that's database driven. That's what every SIM is. A database which is designed, which runs in software as opposed to an alternative, which is to run in hardware. If it's purpose built, hardware beats software every day. But here you're writing rules on a data store to look for the needle in the haystack, and the rules can only be written if you know what to look for. So today you're like, okay, the bad guy looks like, black pant, white shirt, green umbrella, pink hat going northwest at 40 miles an hour. Perfect, write a rule, you catch him. Guess what? Within a week, the shade of the black pant now comes in 1 billion shades, the green hat is in 3 billion shades of green, the pink umbrella is in 16 billion shades of pink umbrella, and your GPS isn't working, so every time he runs, you don't know which direction it is, and the speedometer isn't working. How many rules are you going to write? Not enough to catch the bad guy. So your rules start getting less granular because your team is trying to do the right thing. They want to catch the bad guy, but they don't want to be wrong. Eventually, your rules become so coarse-grained that your false positives go through the roof. When your false positives go through the roof, you start coming up with ideas like, okay, tier 1, too much volume, I'm going to outsource it to somebody. Well, you go look at those alerts and then tell me if something goes wrong. Tier 2, I'm going to try to do it with the few people I have. Tier 3, which is really, really expensive and I'll have my best people look at it. You'll never win that battle, never, because tomorrow there's another 1 billion shades of green. How are you going to write rules? Versus there's a better way. And yes, it's from Palo Alto Networks, but again, go validate all that. But our approach was, enough. No way this is going to work. I'll tell you, I think SIMs are going to die. All SIMs that are in the market will die eventually. Not eventually, everything has to die in all of us. But I'm talking about within a reasonable period of time. That model of computing is gone for cybersecurity. It's dying. because it's not going to work. It's not sustainable. I can't tell you, in the last 12 months, I've met with 390 companies globally. Not one is happy with their SIM. It doesn't matter which SIM, because what I just described. And then it shows up in various forms. Too expensive, no, those are all symptoms. The problem is it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's still putting too much pressure on the person. What we believe is the future is the following. If possible, and yes, it is possible, that's the rhetorical point, you have hardware now that can crunch this stuff at machine scale. At Palo Alto Networks, we are the second largest analytics processor on GCP after Google. Second largest. That means when they come up with TensorFlow or they come up with some other version of their AI, TensorFlow is Google's version of Google's chip that is designed specifically for machine learning, we get to practice on them. We get to run it on them faster, further, better than anybody else. That's number one. So all of these products run on the latest hardware designed to run machine learning. Custom built, purpose built silicon versus writing rules in a database when the rules keep changing. Or what you're looking for keeps changing, so fundamentally rules don't work. Which one would you go with? It's a no-brainer. Now, second, if you're going to apply machine learning and AI, and I want to get into how we can, if you want, maybe there's a separate session on that. The heart and soul of machine learning is what? Data. If we both come to the table with the same basic machine learning model that does whatever, I don't care what it does, something, and every time the machine learning, every time our models are trained, mine is getting trained on a data set that's 10, 20, 50, 100 times larger and richer, and yours isn't, but our models evolve along the same way. Well, they can't by definition because the models have to learn, and if I don't give them enough training data, they won't learn. Bottom line is, if I come to the contest with a data set that's 10, 20, 50, 100 times bigger and more precise, more rich, my model will win over time. Again, it's not an opinion, that's how machine learning works. Now you apply the right AI connectors to it, and then you can do all sorts of magic with it. We are today sitting on the largest data store of cyber information as Palo Alto Networks than any other company out there. We collect more data from our firewalls than anyone else, and we've been doing it for 20 years. We collect more data on our endpoints than any other vendor. We've been doing it for over 7 years. At the time, it looked like, why are you doing this? You guys stupid? Are you just not sure enough? No. We just had an insight. Again, point of view, innovators have a point of view, you can disagree, that when it comes to large problems, over time, humans get lazy. That's how we invented the wheel, our forefathers, our foreparents. Forefathers, not cool anymore, foreparents. Because they were tired of just walking around, someone said, here, take this block and get the corners round. We were lazy and that invented new things. Over time, people collect less data because it gets harder and harder to compress it, harder and harder to understand it. And that's what brings most of these products down. On our endpoint, we collect 200 megabytes per endpoint per day. Most of the vendors collect 70 to 100. And you ask, they say, that's good enough. And they're right, it's good enough. We're not trying to be good enough. We're not trying to be just good enough. Because if you're looking for good enough, you can go to anybody. The question becomes very simply, what do you charge for me? It's just a pricing equation, right? To be really good, to catch the one piece of data that brings the company down, you can't look in the middle of the bell curve. That every one of us has solved it. That's my Nigerian, I shouldn't say Nigerian if anyone from here is Nigeria, but even you'll agree. Most of my cousins who do this are from Nigeria. My uncles have left hundreds of millions of dollars. They try to reach me and I don't respond. That's the middle of the bell curve. But the ones all the way on the right, the long tail, that's where something gets in and you don't know, and that's what brings. How do you find those? You have to get all the data. You have to crunch it through. You cannot do it in a data store anymore. You have to do it in machine learning models on silicon. And that's the approach that we are taking. We have access, because we are the second largest analytics processor on GCP, we get access to all of this stuff. Just in XIM alone, which is our product that we believe is going to replace every SIM, people ask me, is XIM a SIM? I say, no, XIM is what a SIM would have been if it hadn't partied and graduated from college with honors. Because it does the same thing. It's supposed to crunch through data, look for patterns, compare it against known things, and then tell you, hey, there's something wrong here. It doesn't do that. Instead, it gives you tools, say, hey, you want to do a query? Here, better query builder. You want to write a nice report? Oh, I know your board would like a better report. Here's some more. No, that's like a better shovel with cruise control, with this, with that, self-driving. No, dig me the hole I'm looking to dig, and then tell me, okay, I need to dig a little bit more here. That's what we're trying to do. Because we can. Today, with machine learning, we can actually do it. Case in point, our data set today is 1 exabyte. Palo Alto Networks training set, if you will, training data set is 1 exabyte. Big number, look it up. Every day in XIM alone, we analyze 7 petabytes worth of data. 7 petabytes. At Palo Alto Networks, using this approach, 3.5 years ago, we were analyzing 20 terabytes a day in our SOC. Today, we do 80. 3.5 years ago, our mean time to detect was 1 day. Today, it is anywhere between 10 seconds to 12 minutes, depending on the situation. 3.5 years ago, we had low double-digit number of analysts in our SOC. How low? As low as double digits can get. Today, we have the same number of analysts in our SOC. The same people have increased the amount of volume by, we used to do 1 billion alerts a day. Our system used to analyze 1 billion alerts a day. Today, we do 36 billion alerts, 20 terabytes to 80 terabytes. Our mean time to detect has gone down by 3 orders of magnitude. That's the power of using a full machine learning system. Now, everybody will tell you we use machine learning. Everyone uses machine learning. If you notice, my name is Shailesh. I have AI in my name. I mean, talk about, you want to meet a visionary? Talk to my parents. They saw this 50 whatever years ago. But the magic is in the following. Do you have a data set big enough that can train your models? Number one. Number two, are your models handcrafted and supervised, or are they just gathered from some open source library? Which, by the way, is what many people are doing. You can do that. It's very easy to do, which is great for advancement of computing. But when it comes to cybersecurity, that's not good enough. Generative AI is not good enough for cybersecurity. It's good enough to write a term paper, right? Because you can get the president of the US, the first president, you can say it was Abraham Lincoln, you get it wrong. No, it's supposed to be Washington, we'll fix it. But you can't hallucinate when it comes to cybersecurity. You use generative AI with a few data sets and a few models, we might end up giving you a recommendation to turn off all your firewalls, which I like to say, you can get away with anything on your last day of work. So precision AI is not generative. Precision AI means handcrafted machine learning models. We have 4,000 of them because we've been spending 3.5 years working on it. Everything is supervised because the worst thing in machine learning is drifting. The models start drifting. Before you know it, it has drifted off. You give it a bunch of cat pictures and it figures out what a cat picture looks like. Next thing comes in and it says, okay, this is soft, it has whiskers, a bushy tail, call it a wolf. It's not a wolf, but it assumed it's a wolf. You don't say anything, it drifts, it drifts, it drifts. Eventually, you get a picture full of tigers. And that's when you say, oh my God, tigers, turn off all the firewalls. Last day of work, that's the story. You don't want that to happen. And that's the approach that we're taking within Palo Alto Networks. Here's an example. This is a real example which happened in one of our POCs. And within a matter of minutes, while we were POCing XIM, within a matter of minutes, we were able to do this. I won't go through it. You can look it up. But we were able to bring a bunch of incidents because of this intelligence that we have gathered. By the way, you know how much data like I said, 7 petabytes a day, models trained over an exabyte of data. Do you know what that actually means in terms of attacks? Every day at Palo Alto Networks, we identify 1.5 million brand new attacks that had never been seen before. 1.5 million brand new attacks that were never seen before, every day. There is no way a group of humans with the best correlation tools and rules can do something like that. That's the magic that we can do here. Okay, so these are the gains that we have seen. And there's a lot of conditions. Some companies have this, some don't have. So this is all, but this is from just the company's customers. We have put our stuff in production. So this is not so much a pitch for here, buy our products. It's a pitch for this is possible. It is possible, it's possible today, and it will stay for the next few years because we keep building on our advantage. But our closeout rate's close to 100% because machines don't get tired, they don't have to get fed, they don't need vacations, and they don't need performance reviews, which we all know takes time. Mean time to resolution from days to minutes, and the amount of data that we're able to ingest and analyze has gone up on average by 4x. That's 3 times the data you currently analyze on average is not being analyzed. You think something isn't lurking in there? Good luck. So, questions? That was just the art of the possible. You want to know more? If it has triggered some thoughts in you, some curiosity, talk to our teams. We're here 24 hours a day, multiple countries all over the world. We're here to help you. Questions? I still have, what, few minutes? Couple minutes? So, I was either supremely effective or you all had a nice lunch, yes. You didn't, thank you, because I didn't know where I was going. I'm like, what should I pick? They all were just lazy after lunch, or I was so good?
Okay.
No.
So I have 2 questions. The first question regarding the rules for detecting the threat, right? So like you said, we only can generate the rules based on the things what we know. Then the next question would be, with this overwhelming amount of data you mentioned, there's no way for us to generate the rules on time, right? So what did you do to safeguard the network? That's number 1. Number 2, I'm an engineer, a chemical engineer. So what we do for safety in the chemical industry is we use the switch cheese model. So it's like to say every layer of protection, no matter what, there's some default. But what we can do is make sure that no defect in the adjacent layers lay at the same place. So in this way, we can cover them up using different layers. So does this apply also in the network defense?
Sure. Very, very important questions. Thank you for asking the question. So in the first one, your question, as I understand, is okay. We have, I get it, rules, too many rules, etc. But then I still have to look for those things. So what do? I know it's difficult to write rules, but see, here's the difference. When I'm using machine learning models in hardware that's optimized to run machine learning models, I'm looking for bad things. I'm looking for the needle in the haystack, but the approach is slightly different. What I'm doing is, because I can do it at scale, at ridiculous scale, is that every time I see something, every piece of data that I get, I use the following algorithm. 1, I immediately look up against everything bad I have seen to see is it in one of that list. If it is, isolate. If I haven't seen it, then I use some very intelligent heuristics to say, does it look like any of the things I might possibly see? If it does, then I treat it differently. Last but not least, anytime I actually see something that's malicious, not just do I stop it, I actually learn everything I can from it so that I can train the model so next time I'm able to detect it without much effort. That's the magic you get with machine learning that you don't get when you write rules in a database. Imagine doing that every day, 24/7 on 8, 9, 10, 20 petabytes of data. The network effects are so dramatic. Before you know it, you have pretty much generated the ability to find 1.5 million attacks that you didn't even know existed before. The approach is fundamentally different. It's not that, we're just doing it, the same thing with faster chips. That's number 1. To your question about the Swiss cheese defense, which I'm very familiar with as you applied in your industry or others, we're doing the same thing. Guess what? I don't need 20 different tools to look for user behavior analysis, user entity behavior, user behavior anomaly. I don't need another tool for network traffic analysis. I don't need another tool for XDR. I don't need another tool for vulnerability. Today you have 16 different slices of cheese, all have holes in a different place, and you feel you're safe. with what we're doing in XIM, with the approach that I'm taking with machine learning, et cetera, you don't need all these tools. In fact, most of our customers justify the purchase of these products, of XIM and other products we have, by replacing a bunch of other tools. Because at the end of the day, they're all large data problems. You have a large set of data. You're looking for patterns. You're looking for something malicious. If you find it, you stop it. If you don't, you learn from it. And that can happen with user behavior. That can happen with network. That can happen with cloud. So we're applying the same strategy, but we're doing it at machine scale. That's where you get the huge advantage. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, I'll be available afterwards. I know I have to leave, so that'll be the first and the last question. But look, reach out to our teams. We're available anytime, 24/7. Thank you all very much. And wish you all the best. Thank you.